Alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and good evening to all those out there tuned in to us, alhamdulillah. Tonight we have a very prolific gentleman with us, and that is Imam Fuad Samaai, a man that has been there, done that, conquered everything, stood on Mount Everest and higher, alhamdulillah. Of course, Imam has been an Imam at Stellenbosch Masjid for 34 years, and tonight we will be counting on Imam's expertise as an Imam, to guide us and especially guide our Imams for the future, because there's a lot of things now happening, especially with Imams. And the other reality, of course, on the ground is not everybody wants to be an Imam, because there are very, very difficult challenges. And number one, it's financial challenges. But perhaps we can just get to know Imam Fuad Samaai, just a brief, biography, if I may ask.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah wa kafa wa salamun ala ibadihi alladhina istafa min ba'd. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Sheikh, shukran jazakumullah for the invitation. It's indeed a privilege and honor for me to be with you, and I've been following you on TikTok. Not knowing that I will be that is in May. The name is, as you said, Imam Fuad Samaai, and I mentioned this already in other programs. I was born in Brooklyn in 1952, alhamdulillah, and then as a child of 5, our family moved to Paul, and it's actually Paul where I grew up. And that is where eventually went to school there, went to primary school, and I lived my childhood and teenage years all in Paul. Okay, and until I came to Cape Town, to do my Hajj in Cape Town. It was in 1965. I came to Cape Town to do my Hajj under Imam Ibrahim there in Soldier, and if you look at these different phases of my journey with examples of Quran, when I look back at it, you'll see, of course, you'll see a lot of gaps. You'll see where you'll advise those who have decided to walk that particular road. You'd say that, but on the whole, alhamdulillah, I always tell my grandchildren, if I had my life over again, I would definitely take the same road. And this way is a popular tool that I would just try and avoid that.
Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah. Now, as a matter of fact, just earlier I told Imam, as long as I've known Imam, and especially I've known Imam through the Muslim Judicial Council, of which Imam has been a stalwart and long-time member. I have said that there was not at any occasion, especially in meetings, where I have ever, where a question was presented to Imam, where you never had an answer for that question. Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah, and it was always an answer with wisdom. Alhamdulillah. Now, Imam, beyond leading prayers and delivering, khutbah, what do you consider the core religious and pastoral duties of an Imam in the 21st century?
I think that's a fantastic question. That if I knew you were going to pose this question, I would have prepared myself mentally, intellectually, spiritually. Everywhere I would have prepared myself. But it's a fantastic question, a very important question, a very relevant question. And is something which, in fact, is close to my heart. Because I do have a lot of concern for the current generation of Imams and also for the future Imams. Extremely concerned. To be very honest with you, Sheikh, I think that you also come from the generation, we come from a particular generation, and I think it's important for me to mention this now. We come from the generation where as the Imam applauded, that's it.
Yeah.
There was just no ways. Your parents would tell you, Imam said or Sheikh said, or whatever, and that is what, that was it. There was no question about it. But we're not living that time anymore.
Absolutely.
I've gone through that time. I've seen it. I've experienced it. It was good for that time.
Yeah.
And I think the important point was, for me to mention is, they say that many of our younger, and even younger people in general, that they would sort of point a finger at the Imam and the ulama of that time. I always say, don't judge, as I was trying to say that, don't judge a person outside his era.
Absolutely.
Don't judge a person outside the time that they lived in. You need to know the conditions and situation that those people found themselves in at that particular time.
Yes.
If they did not do a very good job, there would be aspects and parts of life which may, according to your own understanding and your own sort of aspirations that you had as a young man at the time, politically, as an example now, they were very much apolitical.
Yeah.
Not because they want to be apolitical. Yes, we had, they were activists among the ulama at the time, but frankly speaking, that was generally not the general exceptions.
Yeah.
That was the exception. But there was a reason for it also, that they were not going to make fools of themselves, going to speak on topics that they were not comfortable with. The point which I want to make is that don't judge them outside the era. Look at the time that they lived, in the conditions that prevailed at the time. Now, why is this important? Is for the simple reason that if they did not do a good job, what would have happened to our Islam in Cape Town?
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, Imam, just to deviate here,
Yeah.
or not even deviate. I remember Sheikh Yusuf Habib, rahmahullah alayhi, especially at the masjid where I used to frequent as a youth, especially for the Hafid learners.
That's right.
He used to tell parents, listen, los je kind hier, also be in the pits. That comes from them. And how many of our Hufaz today are, our best and greatest Hufaz comes from the hands of these stalwarts.
Absolutely. And speaking about the Hufaz, as an example, if we can take maybe that's Hufaz and Imamat and the ulama of the time and so on. Okay, if you look at it now, that the total respect that you had at the time when we did our Hajj in 1965, there were only 34 Hufaz in the whole of Cape Town.
Yes.
And we knew,
SubhanAllah.
we knew all, each one, we knew. Today, alhamdulillah, that there's an explosion of Hufaz, alhamdulillah. We're very, very grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
It's built on the foundations of
yes, absolutely. We're very, very, very proud of where we have gone to this far. But at the same time, I want to mention is that there is a particular quality that those Hufaz of those years, that they had, a level of respect that they had for each other, as example now, and for your teacher, that it remained with you for life. I'll just give you one simple example, that my own Ustad, Imam Shams, and even Sheikh Saleh Abari, because we had said by him as well, that although we were students, but the day when we lived there, we competed, whether it was there or elsewhere we competed, okay, they would never that time, sometimes I remember this, when I would walk in, I'm an adult now, okay, I would go there to Salt River, go to Edison Street Masjid, okay, go and meet Imam. Mom would be so happy. But the way you address you never said, I'm a student. Mashallah,
yeah.
No. Never Jayandro.
Yeah.
I mean, that was not, it is just that sort of aura that they had, the ulama of Hufaz of that time. So it's just something amazing.
Subhanallah, ya Imam. Imam, now, previously you mentioned apolitical. As a matter of fact, I want to pick up on that. As a modern community leader, you inevitably engage in social activism, advocating for social justice, poverty relief, and of course, whatever is happening in the Muslim world, like Palestine, like Gaza, like Kashmir, and all other places. How do you derive this activist role from Islamic teachings, and where do you see the line between spiritual and socio-political involvement?
I think, Sheikh, that what always amazed me, it still amazes me now at this age, as it amazed me over the decades. Okay, and that is the seerah of Rasulullah. I would really encourage anybody to take a serious interest in the seerah, it's the life and history of Rasulullah. You'll find virtually all your answers to any question, a simple question that you pose now. I would say that who inspired me, and how was I inspired to do what you just mentioned about socio-political, economical, and issues on. Rasulullah, before Nubuwwah, before prophethood, he belonged to an organization called Hilful Fudul. Okay? And this organization was what? It was a social welfare organization. They looked after the poor, the weak, the oppressed, and Rasulullah was a part of that organization. And Rasulullah used to say, after he became Nubuwwah, became a Nabi, he said, if Nubuwwah wasn't going to keep me as busy as I am, I would have been full-time busy with Hilful, even after it. No. So, a study of Quran, a study of the Quran, a study of the seerah of Rasulullah, and Sunnah of Rasulullah, you will see that Rasulullah was always involved with human beings. It was one of the connection that he wants to make, that the connection between Rabb and Abd, between Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the servant of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Abd. This relationship, he came and I'm even going to begin to quote a hadith or two, because it's too many. I say it's too many, and we're all aware of it now, that Rasulullah would emphasize and overemphasize, he wanted to create, and he created this sort of brotherhood between the Ansar and the Muhajirin, about the Hijrah, when they made Hijrah to Medina, and how he created this bond, this brotherhood. And Allah makes it beautiful in the Quran. It is beautiful how Allah sort of addressed this whole issue, telling us that is your Muhammad. Why I'm telling you to follow him? Just listen. Allah tells you. Just listen to one incident. What is the ayah where Allah SWT mentioned, very famous, وَاعْتَصِمُوا بِحَبْلِ اللَّهِ جَمِيعًا وَلَا تَفَرَّقُوا وَاذْكُرُوا نِعْمَةَ اللَّهِ عَلَيْكُمْ إِذْ كُنْتُمْ أَعْدَاءً فَأَلَّفَ بَيْنَ قُلُوبِكُمْ فَأَصْبَحْتُمْ بِنِعْمَتِهِ إِخْوَانًا. Here Allah speaks about the Ansar and Muhajir and the Ansar among themselves, the Aus and Khazraj, the different tribes. Allah said that you were enemies of each other. Kuntum a'ada. You were enemies of each other. فَأَلَّفَ بَيْنَ قُلُوبِكُمْ. Allah united your hearts. And through, in the tafsir of that, like Ibn Kathir mentions this, in fact, in tafsir, that when Allah mentions فَأَلَّفَ بَيْنَ قُلُوبِكُمْ فَأَصْبَحْتُمْ بِنِعْمَتِهِ إِخْوَانًا, He made you not like friends, but like brothers. You became like brothers. And we don't have to explain to the Sahaba that brotherhood, that level of brotherhood that existed between them. Rasulullah on this particular thing, this hadith, where Allah said, did I not find you in darkness and Allah will guide you through me? Did I find you enemies of each other and Allah used me to unite your hearts? Not everything has to do always the connection between Allah and His ibad and His servants and things like that. No. So the bottom line is, I would say that I will never ever recognize any person, irrespective of his status, his social, religious, economic, whichever status it is, if he's not involved in some form of activity with regard to the well-being of humanity, okay, the least is, that those who are now gone beyond the years into the country, they still have a duty in the role. And it's to lift up their two hands and ask Allah to relieve the suffering of this ummah, etc., and of humanity at large. So, but for the rest, I would say that you are doing an injustice toward yourself by depriving yourself of not being active in any of these activities. I can tell you that Sheikh just as last point on this one, that is, I remember that in East London, in 1976, the uproar in South Africa, at that time, the political uproar at the time, I was very close with Steve Biko. We were very, very extremely close. He used to come here often to my house and so on. And at the time, we never knew that he was going to become a famous Steve Biko. He was just Steve Biko, the activist, and things like that. Now, he was with the BCM, with the Black Conscious Movement, and I was just part of him and things like that. Now, at the time of his assassination, when he was killed, they asked me to come and guess, afterwards at the memorial, about my relationship that I had with him. And here was a non-Muslim, Steve, because those who are familiar with the name and with a person, a person like him. So often I think about it and think to myself, that you have taught me so much. You have in fact showed me some of the ways for Rasulullah without me realizing it. It was after saying that, brother, no. That, okay, we did have our differences, political differences, and we could speak about them and be very comfortable about our differences. Bottom line is, we say we are living in a time where we need to address that question that you first spoke about, Imam in the modern age. But at this particular moment in time, I would say that we need to become with social activists. We cannot become, and I hate using this word, religious activists, because we have, that we have sort of confined religion to a masjid and to a thobe and to a beard and a very narrow sort of interpretation of deen. And that to me is not deen. I said, if you take how Rasulullah, his message from the day he received, wahi, right up to the time that he passed away from, was it only those things, Now we sometimes use, ayat and so completely out of context that we say, He's not create man or jinn, but to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Everything worship. Now what is worship? What is ibadah? I said, but to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So what is worship? We need to define it. We need to define what exactly and interpret it. To say, well, that for a Muslim, everything should be ibadah, supposed to be ibadah. Right? So how can we ever say that, well, if whether it's Muslims in Sudan or in Gaza or Kashmir or where else in the world, okay, or whether it's a non-Muslim, we should stand up against injustice. Even against your own self, against your own parents, you have to stand for justice. You have to stand up for justice. If tomorrow the Jews are oppressed, we have to stand up for them. This is an example. We have to stand up for them if they are oppressed, irrespective of what is. This is the sort of approach that we need to seriously reflect on, is that where and how do we see and interpret the word ibadah, and when do we say, well, that deen is only a matter that has to do with your ibadah between yourself and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
No, that is so appropriate and so apt. because I mean, many of our imams, they confine themselves to the masjid, whilst everything else is happening in and around them. The very people that comes to the masjid, they have problems with their rent because they cannot solve the problems with the rent office or with the city. You know, they have problems, so many other problems where, you know, just a word from the imam might help and assist in whatever way to alleviate the type of problems that our people might have. And I do believe that, you know, if we are going to confine ourselves to the masjid, we are going to be almost, you know, for lack of another word, lost generation.
Absolutely.
You know,
Absolutely.
yeah.
You see that, Sheikh, that as I say this, we speak about very, you know, the topic that each point that we make needs a sort of a discussion on its own. Yes, and so that's why we just jump from here and there, whatever, because we want to get in as much as possible. But this is whole question about the masjid as example now. You know that, I mean, I find it difficult to swallow that a person could go to the masjid, do whatever do inside, come out. As example, just an example. You go to the masjid, you come out and you exploit somebody else. Can you give me this one example? I said, or you oppress somebody, or you look down upon them. You know that there is one thing, Sheikh. Allah, I'm telling you, there is one thing. For years and years and years, racism.
Yes. Oh, it
I
irks
hate
me.
it to the core.
It irks me.
Absolutely. You know why? For a number of reasons. I have made the statement many times in khutbahs in Stellenbosch and elsewhere. I would say, I doubt, I put a question mark behind the imam, the very imam of a racist Muslim. I put a question mark. You know why? Why the question mark? If we say Allah is Al-Khaliq, Allah is the creator, and Allah is Al-Musawwir, He is the one who formed us. Okay? Just very, by the way, without this particular program that we busy with now, I was just running something through my mind when this came up now about how can a person be racist if you were just standing now in front of Allah, Alhamdulillah, Rabbil Alamin. How do you understand Rabbil Alamin? How do you understand this? You understand? And Allah, as I said, no, you look down a person because of his poverty. Who is Al-Razik? Is not Allah. Is Allah not the one who decided that who was going to be wealthy and who's going to be poor? Allah, why did Allah make zakah a pillar, one of the rukun of the arkan of Islam? Why in particular a pillar? Zakah, doesn't a pillar? It is, I'm going to create poor people, and I'm going to have bring about wealthy people, and they will have a haq in your wealth. They will be the poor that I will be sending them to you. See? They are my amana, Allah's amana. So, why look down upon the poor? There is something fundamentally wrong with your iman if you're a racist, and if you look down upon people because of the color of their skin or because of their social status or whatever it is now. You can't even look down upon a person, forget about that now, a person who is spiritually bankrupt. Exactly. That's it.
Subhanallah.
Allah grant us understand.
Ameen. Sheikh, many masajid, they struggle to retain youth. You know, who feel sort of disconnected from their traditional sources. You know, what innovative programs or approaches can we look at or implement to engage our younger generation? You know, address their specific challenges, like, for example, in Cape Town, identity. I think we have a problem with that. Then there's Islamophobia, and then there's of course the digital life. So and of course make the masjid a place where there's a vibrant community, a vibrant society, especially comprising of 80% of our youth, instead of the other way.
Okay. First of all, yeah, we never know that who's going to listen to this particular program or watch this program of ours here this evening. So I just need to make it clear for a particular school of thought that would say that, well, that is there such a thing as youth in Islam, things like that now. It is definitely a particular point that needs discussion, it needs context as well. But let us, for the sake of ease, let us try and use that particular term. My first sort of response would be that Rasulullah, compared to Rasulullah, he surrounded himself with 40 youth. That's it. There's the Abadillah, the famous Abdullahs. Abdullah bin Mas'ud, Abdullah bin Umar, all those Abdullahs and so on. They were youth. We want, as in the masjid, example, how do we make the masjid attractive to the youth? Yes, we do have this problem. We do have a very serious problem. When are we going to get to that point? Just look at the broad-mindedness of Rasulullah. That's why I said you don't need to go out of the seerah. Ulama were afraid that, no, we need to become modernists, you understand, to address this issue. So they said, no. You don't need to sacrifice your roots to address these issues. You use the very roots. In fact, the roots are there for you to be used further to answer those particular questions. As an example now, imagine the total freedom that the youth had, that a young man could walk up to Rasulullah and say, Ya Rasulullah, Alim leave Islam. Ya Rasulullah, give me permission to commit zina. Give me permission to commit zina. Can you imagine?
Yes.
If it was come up to any of us as an example now, I wonder what if we were not aware of this hadith, yes, I wonder what our response would have been. Yes. Astaghfirullah, can't you feel me? I said, Rasul, nothing like that. Come sit next to me. Simple questions. Do you have a mother? Yes. Would you like someone to come and see you with your mother? No, I can't. This young man. Do you have a sister? Your mother had it. So does that? Would you like to do that to your sister, to your mother, to your daughter, to what? Yeah. So likewise, the person you want to commit zina with, what's the mother, or the sister, or the daughter, or someone. So there's very practical examples and so on. And this is where those very Sahaba, they would tell these stories themselves about their interaction with Rasulullah, and they would proudly speak about it, exposing their own sort of sins in inverted commas, addressing these things to Rasulullah, and Rasulullah responds to that now. And yet, they would boast about how Rasulullah addressed it. So, in just responding to the question, one is, I think a person by the name of Sheikh Abu Hassan al-Nadwi, he was great thinker, great Muslim philosopher and alim, and he's also very, 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 very popular amongst the youth in the 1970s. In the 1970s, Sheikh Abu Hassan al-Nadwi was from Nadwa, that his books were very popular because he addressed all those issues. And in England, he made he gave a lecture somewhere in England, I think it was somewhere in Yorkshire, that he gave a lecture, and he mentioned there, he said to the ulama, he said, if you are not going to address the current affairs from the minbar, if you are not going to address the current affairs from the minbar,
become activists.
Yeah. What's going to happen? Others will address those issues. And it might just be the wrong people that will address these issues, and youth will be misled.
If the elders of the village can teach the children, the village idiot will.
Exactly. Absolutely. Absolutely. That's it. And that is why I used to encourage the younger ulama, said, well, you need to remain up to date with current affairs. Today it is much easier. I mean, that time, you know that we need to read, it should take time to harvest, you need to read all these type, to get up to date with news and stay up to date with news, etc., etc. Today it is, you can. It's so much easier. So, in order to attract the youth, it is to actually I would do this, and so which I did, alhamdulillah, but as I said, this is another generation of youth again. At one time, we used to call this the age of information. And today, you think that, that I think that was a reason for me to have been Imam of Stellenbosch was because I had 400 university students in the Jumu'ah. You understand? In the Jumu'ah, 1987, when I gave a lecture, that comes to Afrikaans in Stellenbosch. Because the community was an Afrikaans community. So I said, that soon a time will come when we will have to change the language of the khutbah to English. Because we're going to have students coming from all over the world to come study at Stellenbosch University. That was 1987. That's it. And so what happened was, some of the people just said to me, "Van praat jy in India?" A lot of people come to Stellenbosch University. So 1994 was around the corner. After 1994, students started coming from all over the world to come study at Stellenbosch University. Yeah. You had to change, you had to accommodate them, and you had to sort of address their needs. So at that time, it was easy to get them together, and you'd have have dialogue, and sit in there, have a discussion, and find out, what do you say about this? Let us stop, let us stop being, so patriotic that where we come to this particular point where we imagine that we have all the solutions to all the problems and all our questions, to all the answers to all the questions of the youth. We don't have it.
Yes.
Let us not even pretend that we have it. Yeah. Let us, the youth, ask them to go here. What do you think about this particular issue? You speak. Let us hear. And let us then, discuss it and debate it, etc., etc. And in this way, you'll find, inshallah, that they will feel included. This exclusivism that you find amongst, the fraternity, if I may call it that now, for example, now, that is way past, we past that stage. In a different generation now. So I would say that there's a lot of beautiful programs for youth, but one is to open the communication. Years ago, you used to speak about the communication gap between the youth and the senior people. And I think it is as relevant today because there is still this communication gap. When I gave a khutbah 2 weeks ago, and I mentioned about this very dangerous phenomenon that you find in England, for example, that they started a council of ex-Muslims. That's it. Youth, a council of ex-Muslims. And they made no two bones about the fact, they say that we are in South Africa as well. It's just that in South Africa, because you know that you keep it under wraps. Yeah. It's just that they're more in the open. Those children, their background, they don't come from so-called non-Muslim background. They come from solid Arab, Indo-Pak background. Solid roots they come from. But they've lost it on the way. So open the communication gap.
Yes. So the Imam must be willing to be consulted, to consult, and must be willing to accept, engagement, especially when it comes from youth, and accept what they would like to happen within the masjid. Yes. Imam, just as relevant, the role of women, whether it is in the masjid, whether it is community leadership, the role of women in our society, in our community, because we have many, especially now, young women and our senior people who have, they're doing absolutely great when it comes to scholarly works, when it comes to hifz, when it comes to just about everything with regard to Islam and Deen, and they're excelling. But the problem is, from their side, they're getting irritated and agitated because they're never given the opportunities that men would be, for example.
Yes, absolutely. Now, this is another thing, and this is where, that it is so sad to say this now. This is where ulama need to come together and they need to discuss this particular issue, because we know that there are those that the whole particular views, and they're so fanatical in their own views that they close themselves to each and every other view. Understand? We need to look and we understand you, and you need to understand this another part as well. We can't debate now to a 25 still about women in Masjid Islam. Is a woman allowed to go to attend a Masjid? And you come with all your dalail and things like that, which we accept. It's not that if you come with, that is, we accept differences. It's the way that in which we differ. That is what really, it has become a disgrace. And then we justify the very ugly ways that we use when we disagree with each other. Coming to this particular issue, bottom, that I don't need to once again go back to the time of Rasulullah said. I always wonder at how much of our ibadah, our daily ibadah, and then we speak about now, would we have had, it was not for Sayyidina Aisha radiallahu anha, okay? Hadith, khutbah, Salama.
Yeah.
Salama.
Yeah.
We quote them and said, but they say, yes, but they were there, and this is how it is now. Right? We say that, no, we need to face reality. What is the reality? The reality is a woman out there. Some of them, they become, very, very, very well equipped in various fields. They need to make a contribution. They have to make a contribution. We need them. In fact, in Cape Town, I can't speak for other provinces, but let me speak for Cape Town. Show me, Sheikh, how many masajid we have here. Who were the people behind the building and the fundraising of this masajid?
Subhanallah. Absolutely.
I just need to say that.
Yes.
That's it. So that we shouldn't allow other people in other provinces, other places to come dictate to us and so on, because they were the people that were there.
Yeah.
That's it. To raise this fund, to build our masajid, to build our madaris, and yes, you can blame the men for it, but eventually whatever you did. But the fact remains that is what happened.
Yeah.
They were. So even the elderly ladies, we don't exclude them because they don't have an education or something like that. Their contribution should never ever be absolutely.
Yeah, you can build the masjid, but you cannot contribute to
exactly.
to
That's number one.
education.
Secondly, is that who were most of the Khalifas
Yes.
for our children? Who gave our children the root of the deen? The very fundamentals of the deen came from these mu'allimas. So why should we? Likewise, there's another level, where it's an intellectual level, that they have a contribution to make again on that level.
Yeah.
So why not exclude? Just every time exclude. At the end of the day, it's only you left. You and your thinking and your ideas and your understanding, and that is something that we really need to look at.
Subhanallah. Sheikh, Islamophobia. How do we guide our congregation to respond to incidences of Islamophobia? As a matter of fact, in South Africa now, the racist, Zionist, Islamophobe, those suffering from Islamophobia, they have become emboldened. So how do we respond to such incidences, with wisdom and patience, whilst also proactively educating our community.
Right, okay. Once again, Sheikh, Islamophobia, as you would very well know, and each and every one of us we know, it started right at the beginning of Islam, in the very initial stage. In the Makki period, it's not even a Madani period, it's the Makki period. It started right in that period of Rasulullah. So Islamophobia has been there in each and every generation. If you study Islamic history from the time of Rasulullah, you bring it right down to where we are today. You'll find that it was a single generation that can say that they did not experience Islamophobia in one form or the other. The time that we live in again, at the time when it happened, when we were younger, we addressed it in a particular way. Some addressed it in a very sort of radical way. Some used very liberal means to address that as well. That sometimes, that the enthusiasm of some, they seem to lose control of the enthusiasm when it comes to this issue now. How do we deal with it now? What has my very recent understanding of Islamophobia in this current era that we find ourselves in, is that 90%, if not more, is total ignorance of Islam. Why is it defined that the moment people start reading, this afternoon I just came across TikTok that a woman, she didn't embrace Islam. She said, I opened the Quran, English copy of the Quran, I read from beginning to end, and then I saw certain things that we were totally indoctrinated in the propaganda against Islam and the sort of Islamophobic ideas that you find in Western society. She mentioned in particular, it is totally taken out of context because the Quran, no way it shows total respect for that we know, that total respect for other religions, for other people, for other nations, etc., etc. If a person is Islamophobic, as an example now, there are different ways that those who are good with a pen, as we were called in the old days, using the pen, those who can write and explain by using the pen, and those who could use the tongue, use that now, etc. We take that particular route. But I will, and you can feel free to disagree with me. I will never, ever, ever find justification of violence against Islamophobic people. Not to use violence against us as such people. You fight them with your tongue, you fight them with your pen. You see? You don't fight them physically. That is, if a person, how many times Rasulullah himself, how many times Rasulullah was attacked and then Sahaba wanted to kill the person?
He been with the camel intestines.
Exactly. Yeah. We know about it, that how, it's so beautiful that you mentioned this particular point. And every time when I go to Makkah and I look at the Kaaba, then I actually see where Rasulullah was standing when that incident happened. It said Fatima was a young girl, the intestines of the camel, and at all times, that we should try and just remain in control of ourselves. Islamophobia is here and will remain here. It's going to be a challenge for us now. Just make sure that what you do is you familiarize yourself with the arguments, and you need amongst yourselves, and that's amongst ourselves, we need to see that whether the arguments that they put forward, in their justification, of Islamophobia, that whether those arguments are valid for us first or not valid. So, whatever they say about Islam, do they perhaps sort of confuse Islam with Muslim? Do they know the difference between Islam and Muslim? Yes, it's a controversial point which I'm making now. But at the end of the day, I have to ask a simple question that give a person the benefit of the doubt and say, well, okay, that you don't know, allow me to explain to you.
Yeah. No, Jazakallah, Shaykhna. Last question. We live in a society, diverse society, where we have multiple, very different peoples, especially now. And of course, for ages, we have lived in a society where we have gone to what they would call, what we call back in the days, Christian schools. And we've had to, recite or rather be part of Bible studies, recite Our Father in the morning. Now it's a completely different environment. Then we had different type of relationships with our neighbors, irrespective of who they were, especially when they were were non-Muslims, and the type of relationship that we had, especially in communities like Burkab, like District 6, those communities, Salt River, Woodstock, the environment was very, very different. Now we're living in an environment where, Muslims probably in all communities are the minority. At this time where our Christian neighbors are celebrating their Christmas, do you have a message especially for Muslims, how to deal with still maintain good relations with their Christian neighbors without harming them by the things that's being said? Because this is an argument that comes year on year on year. How and some of those it harms relationships with our neighbors instead of bringing them closer. Perhaps there is an opportunity for us to engage in a different way. Any advice on that?
I think that my immediate response to that would be, I would say that there's a lot you can do without sacrificing your roots. That's important.
Yeah.
You should know you've got your identity. If you have a good relationship with your neighbors, with your non-Muslims throughout the year, throughout the year, and it is the very simple daily things that you mentioned about vocab, you mentioned about the statistics and so on, that where you had this neighbors and they used to assist wherever they could and so on, conflict and so on, so copy sick and that type of thing. You first have to identify the holes in your good neighborliness that you're supposed to have. Ask yourself, what type of neighbor am I? See? And I don't need, again, going back to Sierra Rasulullah, they have got more than enough example from there as well, because many hadith to explain that as well. But at the end of the day, what is it just to say that, wishing you well over the festive season, if you want to stay away from controversy, there's nobody that can tell you that there is something wrong by telling a person, wishing you well for the festive season, okay, stay safe and so on, and blah, 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 and the other. And, whatever good words you can share with them or whatever, but don't offend them in the least. See? You see that what many of us, it just seems that we tend to forget this now, that we always want to say, that don't swear their God, because what they're going to do, they're going to swear your God in return and use your God. Understand? That's not. So this is something which we need to understand is you don't need to be. What is the reason to be ugly towards people? Why?
Yeah.
Why should it be? What would be? Rasul, look at this now. This may be just a fine point. So you can idea that Rasul lived for 40 years amongst the Arabs. These people, the Quraysh, and the Arabs at the time, before he became a Nabi. In the 40 years, Allah trained him in akhlaq. Because he didn't know what was Iman is. This ayat Quran is discussing also now. Okay? Not that now. But he was trained in akhlaq to the extent that who gave him the title of Al-Amin al-Sadiq? They were not Muslims at the time.
Yes.
As we know it. That now. So why would they give him those titles? Because that is how he presents himself. So he was فَقَدْ لَبِثْتُ فِيكُمْ عُمَرًا مِنْ قَبْلِ. Allah mentioned in the Quran, telling Muhammad that I lived amongst you my entire life and entire lifetime. I was born amongst you. I grew up amongst you. I became a teenager amongst you. I became an adult amongst you. I became from a single man to a married man amongst you. All that. And you were the people that gave me the name Al-Amin and As-Sadiq, the truthful one and the trustworthy one. Why would they come to you now after 40 years? Well, I come to you with a lie now. See? It's a fantastic argument. We haven't got time to do the tafsir of this now because it's beautiful tafsir on this particular now. That he lived this entire life and so on. So, if our children grow up, they're going to stay next to their non-Muslim neighbor for the best part of 20 years, 25 years, until they get married and maybe then move on. I said, what is it that relationship? That relationship should be that way. I know so beautiful. I was just thinking of this example, just came to mind now. I remember at one particular place that a non-Muslim was saying, a non-Muslim, she was telling her Christian neighbor, she's Christian, she's telling her Christian neighbor, ik weet dat ons kan bieren wie soos die moslim kan hebben, soos die moslims. They were drawn to it now. So if it is now this is their period, lakum dinukum waliya din. You stay in your deen, they say on their deen. I said, you don't need to be unnecessarily sort of confrontation with them. It has no need for it, and wish them well over the festive season, wish them safety. They go through the same challenges that we go through socially, economically, and otherwise. They go through the same challenges, and wish them well, and make dua for them. What prevents us from making dua for them? There's not a single ayah or hadith that prevents us from making dua that Allah shall guide them, Allah protect them, Allah shall so that's basically in a nutshell.
Imam, this has been absolutely exhilarating. Jazakallah khair for the absolutely incredible advice. You have taught me quite a number of things just sitting here, and I hope that others have benefited from this as well. Jazakallah khair, Habibi. I cannot thank you enough for having been on this program. Jazakallah khair.
Barakallahu feekum, Sheikh. I know that as the last word from my side, I know as I'm going to leave here, and over the next day or two, I'll be thinking back on this particular program. You should have brought in this point, you should have brought in that point. Some people should understand as well that you have there's time constraints. Yes. You're saying that we need to respect and so on. So inshallah ta'ala, shukran jazakumullah for the opportunity. I really enjoyed it myself.
No, the pleasure was all mine, subhanAllah, the pleasure was all mine. Barakallahu feek, jazakallah khair, jazakallah khair. Allahu Akbar.